the $5 Paint Club. I love the $5 Paint Club. They will teach me how to paint all my projects. Show me how to paint furniture with a new mindset. I love the $5 Paint Club.
Hey everyone, this is Serena with the $5 Paint Club, and this month we are doing a textured patina finish on this amazing, awesome cabinet that is for our new family pet, Raven, our snake. So this is actually the base to our snake cabinet. It's actually a handmade piece that is solid wood, so it's going to be a lot of fun. We are going to be doing, like I said, a textured patina look. Now we're going to be using a couple of different products. Like all of our videos, I want you to try to find the products that work best for you. I have just found that these products work really well. It's what they are designed to do, and it's what we're going to be using today. So I'm going to be introducing you to a couple of new products that we haven't used in the past, as well as a texture medium, a textured roller, super fun stuff. And we're going to be using some Modern Masters and a little bit of Dixie Belle to try to make the whole thing come together. So let's talk a few minutes about the products. So the products we're going to be using is actually a rust. It's a rust. It's sort of like the patina that we did in the vintage patina that was made by Dixie Belle, but this is actually a finish that's meant to create a rusty metal type look. It's a several parts. Hold on here. It's actually several steps to it. So we're going to talk about the first step, which is going to be the first part of this video. There is a primer that you have to use. You cannot use any other primer. It has to be a metal primer. And so you're going to apply this first. And then when you're done with that, you're actually going to apply the iron paint. And it's an oxidizing iron paint, of which when it's dry, you spray, kind of very similar, a rust activator. And this rust activator is going to create a really cool metal rusty finish. Now, when that finish is where you would like it to be, now here's the directions from Modern Masters. We paint furniture, so we don't ever follow directions. Modern Masters suggests that there is a 24-hour drying time between painting this and doing this. I don't think so. So I don't know. We're gonna wait and see. We'll try it out. We're furniture painters, so we never follow directions. Once we have the rust finish that we want, we actually have to seal it off because we want to stop the rust process from happening so we can go to the next step, which is actually the texture process. So the next step is going to be to seal it off, and the Modern Masters has, it's called PERMACOAT Extreme, seals and protects metal effects rust finishes. Say that real fast 10 times. So we're going to be doing this step first. This is the first part of the video. You're going to paint this on just like you would any other paint. The directions do call for us to roll it on. So I'm not a big fan of rolling on paints and products, especially in furniture. I don't really like the look of it. However, I am going to try to follow the directions as much as I can because obviously the company has created directions for a reason. So let's get started. We're going to apply our primer. Now I have already cleaned this piece and prepped this piece as I would any other piece that has been cleaned with crud cutter, light sanding while it was wet to get any grime and dirt and stuff off of it. It was a piece that was stained, a dark stain. So we're going to kind of see how that reacts to it. So definitely prep your piece before you get started. Now for the roller real quick. The directions call to use like a little 4-inch foam roller. Again, we're supposed to follow directions. I'm not a big fan of these. I actually happen to like a real flat roller, and they make these. This one here is by Blue Hawk. I think it might be a Lowe's brand, I think. And it does say it's a velour for latex paints. I actually happen to like the finish of this better than this. Again, trial and error. Use what works for you. Okay, so we're gonna go ahead and get our primer on. The directions do call for 2 coats of primer. we're just gonna kind of, you know, wing it. That's how we always do it, right? It just looks like a brown paint. We're just gonna kind of roll it on. I don't think that it's meant to be perfect. Okay, so I can see where, because of the lines, it's a tongue and groove cabinet. I do see where I need to get the paint into at least the crevices just a little bit. I want to make sure my Klingon brushes are almost always wet. So you want to make sure that if you have a wet Klingon brush, or you keep your brushes wet, ready to use at all times, you want to make sure you try to dry it as much. You don't want anything that can interfere with the primer paint. Now, typically when doing a piece, I will try to remove as much hardware as possible, but a lot of times in old cabinets, especially handmade ones, first of all, they don't line up right as it is. Second of all, if you remove them and try to put them back on, they may never go on the same way again. Just to kind of use that as a general rule of thumb, look at the piece and see if the piece is healthy enough to remove the hinges off of. Almost always remove the handles. This piece didn't have any handles. We'll definitely be adding one later on. So just kind of look at the piece and see that can you take a chance of removing the hinges from the piece and painting the door separate, and have it go back on again. A lot of times it's very, very difficult. You end up drilling new holes. It never goes on the same way. They're never level. So just kind of take that, is every piece is going to be different. Let me give you guys a little tip here. When you're painting a piece like this, especially on a tabletop, I wasn't thinking ahead, it's usually best to get, there's these little cone risers that you can get underneath to get it up off the table so it's easier to paint the bottom. You can also use like 2x4s, wood, something to get the piece up just a little bit. So just a little tip for you. Okay, so that is the first coat that we've done, and the directions call for 2 coats of the primer. So we are going to wait for it to fully dry. We've used about half of our little 4-ounce bottle, which is exactly, I'm getting exactly the coverage that the manufacturer recommends, so that's good. I was a little bit worried because this cabinet is fairly good size. Thankfully there's no back to do, and I won't be doing the inside. It's a snake cabinet, so there's no need to do the inside of it. So I have used about 2 ounces of the primer. Second coat, I would expect to use pretty much all of it for the next coat. So we're gonna let this dry and we'll get back to coat 2 in just a few. Okay, y'all, we are back to do the second coat on this piece. I just kind of found that during the first coat, it is much easier to brush it on than to roll it on. So I am going to not follow directions and brush it on. severe thunderstorm here in the lovely state of Florida. So I don't know if you guys can hear that or not, but it is rumbling outside. So I hope we don't lose power right in the middle of filming. If we do, well, we'll just start over. But anyways, so I don't know if you guys can hear that, but it's like that. Actually, as I'm painting and I'm listening to thunder, I have in my head the song Garth Brooks. I think it's a country song. Garth Brooks, Thunder Rolls. So that's what we're experiencing right now. So maybe I think I was just excited I'm doing this patina project. That's really what it must be. So if you're looking above my piece going, why is she not painting the top of it? This is actually a stand for a snake tank, and well, nobody can see it. And it's for me, it's not for a customer. Obviously, if this was a custom job, you would want to make sure that you take the time to take the doors off, do them properly, paint the inside, paint the tops, etc. When it's a piece for my own personal thing, my own personal house, I make shortcuts. So let's face it, we all do. Okay, so as expected, I've got about an ounce of paint left out of the 4 ounces. So the second coat, obviously it didn't take as much to cover with the second coat. It's not a perfect coverage on the second coat. It's not meant to be. It's just a primer. So it's the primer base for the rust patina. So I have a little bit left behind for a smaller project, but I will say this product is somewhat expensive. You can get it in bigger containers if you plan on doing a really large piece with it. Don't cut corners when it comes to the primer. Everything, the thunder's really bad. I don't know if y'all can hear it, but don't cut corners on the primer. You won't get the same effect. The primer is specifically meant for this paint and this technique. So according to the directions, we are now supposed to wait 24 hours for the primer to cure before we go and add our oxidizing paint to it. I'm not going to be waiting 24 hours, I don't think. We will wait a couple of hours for this piece to set. The weather here in Florida is very humid right now. It may actually take a little bit of time for this to dry. So we'll be back later on after this piece has a chance to sit and bake and do whatever it is it's supposed to do. And hopefully the storm that we're in the middle of right now can move on out of here so that we don't lose our electricity. So I will see you guys when this is dry. Okay, so it has been about 3 hours now since we did it. Now I know the direction said 24 hours, but you know, when you're filming tutorials, you're gonna have 24 hours to wait. So it's been about 3 hours. I did a little test over here with the oxidizing paint about an hour and 30 minutes ago. It didn't quite work as well, but now that the paint has been sitting, I tried another test area and bam, it was working. So I do think that there is a science behind allowing the primer coat to cure properly so that oxidizing paint can stick to that surface and start to create the patina or the rusting process. Remember, this is a rusting patina, more so than a copper patina. So I think about sheet metal left out in the rain for a long time. That's kind of the look that we're going for here with a little bit of texture added. Some reptile prints you guys will see later on. But so right now we're gonna go ahead and put on the first coat of the iron oxidizing paint by Modern Masters. This is part of their metallic effects collection. I wanna say, I could be wrong, but I wanna say this is one of the only few actual oxidizing paints on the market. Now they do have the patina paints by Dixie Belle, and so a couple of other ones out there. There may be another brand that's marketing this as well. I can pretty much assure you it's probably Modern Masters producing it, since they are sort of the purveyor of these types of paints. What I like about the Modern Masters brand is it is an international brand, so our friends across the Big Blue Lake can also get their hands on these products as well. And so that's really important when we're trying to teach tutorials. So let's get started. Okay, so we have the first coat of the iron oxidizing paint. A couple of things that I noticed with the paint. This is not a paint that I use very often. I do use a lot of Modern Masters metallics, and sometimes they can be a little bit clumpy, just depending on how long they've been sitting. This actually was a little bit clumpy to me as well, but it was really more of the clay, the pigments, you're kind of able to mash them in. So just be aware of that you want to make sure you don't get any of those in your pieces. I'm not sure about sanding this product. It doesn't recommend it, therefore I wouldn't. So I try to make sure that you don't have any of those pieces when you're painting on those coats. Second of all, there's a funky smell. It smells like, and the Dixie Belle had a funky smell to me that always smelled like burning wires. It's weird, but this paint to me, it literally smells like, old metal, like that old rusty metal smell. It definitely has that funky smell to it. So just be aware, it is a VOC-free product, so using it indoors is actually okay. We're not getting a lingering smell or any of that. It's just you can kind of get like the smell of this rusty metal, stinky smell, kind of like when you take steel wool and you add the vinegar to it in the jars to like create a patina to put on wood. That's the smell that I'm talking about. So just be aware of that. We're gonna let this dry. You kind of know when it's dry because it starts to go into sort of like a chalky charcoal finish, and that's how you can tell that it's actually dry. So we're gonna wait for this to dry. It should take about 15 to 20 minutes for the first coat to dry, and then they say 1 hour after the second coat before you start to spray the patina. So we'll be back in just a few minutes to start the second coat. Okay, so we're back to put on the second coat of the oxidizing paint. Now the second coat, it's recommended to wait 1 hour before spraying the activator on it. So I have a test section going on over on the side, and it definitely is good to wait an hour for it to dry. Now the oxidizing effect, once you put the spray on it, which is this rust activator, takes about 2 hours from start to finish to get a full activation. Again, this process is, while it's very easy, it's very time consuming as far as time. So if you're looking to get a project done in a couple of hours, this is not going to be the one for you. So let's go ahead and get the second coat on so that we can let it cure for an hour and get going with the stuff here. Okay, so we just finished up the second coat, and we're going to be back in an hour to spray this, and then you get to have, over the course of 2 hours, a lovely time lapse of the transition between the charcoal and creating the rust in the piece. So I can't wait. I can see the side of it right now. I'll snap a little shot, and that way Jonathan can pop it in the video for you guys so you can kind of see what's coming up, because the little test section that I did is amazing. So anyways, we'll see you guys back here in about an hour. Okay, welcome back. We've been letting this piece sit for an hour, exactly as the directions have stated. There's still some like wet spots on it, but it's at an hour, so we're gonna give it an hour. Now, you gotta take the rust activator and you gotta like spray it, wait 5 minutes, and then spray it again. Here we go. 5 minutes. Okay, it's been 5 minutes, and we're gonna go ahead and spray it for the second time, and then we're gonna let it sit for 2 hours. Alrighty, I will see you all back here in 2 hours, and we'll get to step number, I don't even know what step we're on, like 900 or something like that. So we'll see you back in 2 hours. Hey everyone, we are back. It has been 2 amazing hours and I am absolutely loving this piece. So what we need to do in this step is we need to stop this process from happening. The next couple of steps, we're going to be applying texture. We're going to be doing some alligator prints to it. We're going to be applying a bronze, a little bit more patinas, maybe some blue paint, depending on what we get. So with this, we need to stop the process of the rusting that's going on. And so with that, we're going to be using a product made by Modern Masters, and it's called PERMACOAT Extreme, and just 1 coat of this. Now, here's what's going to happen. When I put this on it, the piece is going to turn dark again, as odd as that sounds. It's going to turn dark again, and this is kind of a milky color, but as this dries, the color will actually pop and be more vibrant. We have to do this step. Without this step of stopping this process, it is going to affect the next couple of steps that we do as far as adding the texture and with the roller and the additional paints that we're going to be adding, the metallics and paints we're going to be adding to the piece. So we're going to go ahead and seal this piece up, let it dry fully. They say somewhere between, I think it's 1 hour is let me just read here real quick. I think it's an hour is what I've read. So just an hour for this to dry. Actually, it says the rusted finish must be fully cured prior to application, a minimum of 24 hours. This is supposed to be fully cured in 24 hours. We don't have 24 hours to wait, so we're gonna seal it up. So we'll get this puppy sealed up, and final dry covers. Dry to touch, 30 minutes. Recoat time is in 1 hour. All right, well, there you go. So full cure time, 7 to 10 days. I don't know about that, but anyways, we're gonna go ahead and seal this piece up and get this process to stop working. Is really cool. It has some really cool textures and effects to it. I'm totally in love with that. So let's go ahead and get this sealed up and get it painted. So this is a water-based product, so we're gonna go ahead and use, so anytime you use a water-based sealer, a synthetic brush, if you use an oil-based sealer, you're gonna wanna use natural brush. That's a little tip for you. Okay, now as I said, the purpose of this is to actually stop the patina process or the rusting process that the paint is going through, or I guess oxidizing might be a better word. With this, like I said, it turned dark. Now as the clear coat cures over the course of the next, I would say 30, I can see it already starting on the side here, and the next like 30 to 45 minutes, the rust color will pop back through once this top coat has cured. So or actually has dried to the touch. So we're gonna come back in just a few minutes and touch up anything that we see here and let this process happen. I wanna make sure too that with the sealer coat that you don't have, it's actually a piece like this, it's not such a big deal if you got little drippy marks with the sealer, but you definitely wanna be careful a little bit with it and make sure you don't have too many runs or drippy marks on it, because I wouldn't recommend sanding something like this after the fact. So anyways, we're gonna let this piece sit and dry, and then we're gonna come back and we're gonna start the texture process of it. All right, so we've hit the point now where our sealer here has dried. It's been about, I don't know, about an hour, hour and a half. And so now this is dry and it's ready for me to start adding the texture to it. Now, a texture can be added in several different ways. You can use a product like Pixie Texture that you mix with paint. There's all kinds of texture mediums on the market. And the one we're gonna be using today is called a texture paste. And this is actually designed for canvases, but you can pretty much use it on anything. It dries very quickly. It's made for stencils and dimensional type art. And so we're gonna give this product a try today. I did a little test over here to make sure I was getting a good adhesion to the wood, and it's perfect. So let's talk about rollers real quick. There's all kinds of different rollers out in the market. Today we're gonna be using a reptile, since this is my snake stand. We're gonna be using the crocodile pattern. There's all kinds of different, there's all kinds of different rollers that you can get on the market, from flowers to textures to brick patterns to grasses to wood prints, just about anything you want. So I'm gonna show you guys how you go ahead and use the texture rollers with a product like this. Again, here's an up close look at it. It's by Ranger. It's a textured paste, fairly affordable. I think maybe $5 or $6 for this, and it goes a long ways, you will see. You can see my little test corner that I did over there just a bit ago. So we're gonna go ahead and get this on. Now, I'm gonna be doing this in sporadic spurts. So the idea behind this is to look like it's peeling, like, you know, kind of like when reptiles lose their skin, this peeling sort of texture look to it. So let's get started. When I'm doing textures, you know those icing spoons that you ice cakes with? They make amazing tools to spread icing, or to spread icing, to spread textures with. They come in all different sizes. For this project, I think I'm going to be using the small one. We'll kind of see. But anyways, let's get to work. So basically, you just put this on like you would ice a cake, and then go ahead. Don't let it set. Let's go ahead and run your roller through it like that. Try to get, if you get any, the roller picks up any in the picks, just kind of pick it out. We're not looking for perfection on this. Remember, we want a peeling, drippy sort of look. But I'm actually gonna try to get this a little bit thinner. It looks like I got it too thick. It's a great thing with textures. You don't like what you have, scrape it off and start, oh, that's much better, much thinner. Ah, there we go. gonna let this dry. It should just take a few minutes actually, probably about, it's already starting to dry very, very quickly. And then our next step from here is we're actually gonna be taking this bronze patina paint and some blue patina, and everywhere that there is a reptile stamp, we're gonna be using this with the blue patina. So she got a really, really cool effect with the dark rust underneath of it, with sort of the reptile-ish looking colors popping through, and then adding the bronze with the blue to make some of the more patina-like effects. So we're gonna wait for this to dry, and we'll get started painting our little designs here. Yeah, they're drying very, very quickly. Okay, now that our texture is dry, we're gonna go ahead and take the bronze patina paint and we're gonna dab it into where the texture is and add a little bit of streaking throughout the piece. Now, once that dries, it takes like 15-20 minutes, we'll add a second coat, and then that's when we start to spray. You guys might remember that from the first patina video that we did, that when you're trying to do a patina, not a rust, but a patina, you start to spray the activator right after the second coat. So this is the first coat. We're gonna let this dry, and then we're gonna go ahead and do the second coat. Okay, so we're back here. We're gonna start the second coat, and then we're gonna start the patina process. So when you're working with the patina, you wanna work in small sections, especially when you have to start spraying it. So I wanna start on the side, and I'm gonna go just kind of work my way around that way. Now, after I spray the patina, I like to go through with my little sponge and just kind of get some of the, like, the excess, especially like down here at the bottom as it runs down. Okay, so we're gonna let this set for a little bit and let the patina process continue to do what it needs to do. And then we'll kind of do our magic. Let's see where we're at with it. Hey everyone, Serena here, and we are back for day 2 of this project. Now, I know you're thinking, I know when you went to bed last night, or at least when I went to bed last night, it didn't look like this. So here's what happened. This morning when I got up, last night, I did some texture on it, and then I started the patina process with playing around with the blues and the greens. When I woke up this morning, I hated it. Have you guys ever done a project where you're working on it, you think it's so great, and then you look at it the next day and you're like, oh, fail. It wasn't my vision at all. And I know sometimes it's hard when you have a vision of what you want a piece to look like when you're done, and it doesn't turn out that way. Here's the great thing. It's only paint. And with paint comes, well, you can redo it. It's kind of like a palette. You can just clean it and redo it. With this piece, I couldn't exactly clean it because it had texture all over it. So I decided what I wanted to do was actually add more texture to it, because I think that was the problem. It was like the texture with the crocodile print was kind of sporadic. It was like here and there and everywhere. And I really wanted it to be a little bit more fluid, a little bit more consistent, because it is my, you know, the stand for my snake. So basically what I did is I scraped it down. You can still see some of the patina here that I did. I just scraped it down and said, forget it, and added some more texture to it, let it dry. And now here's what we're gonna do. Because in my mind, I had this piece, I really wanted it to be very, very rusty with these blue patinas coming down. One of the problems that I have, and I've been saying this over and over with the patina products, whether it's Dixie Belle or Modern Masters, is the ability to not control what you're getting. As a painter, a furniture painter, it's very hard for me to grasp because I'm very controlling and I want to control what I get. So I have decided that I'm going to use paint for the top part so that I can control the patina look of it. I can actually control how much blue I want, or how much aqua I want, or how much rust I want. instead of using the patina products that I never know what I'm gonna get, and I think that was the problem that I was having, is that I had the texture here and there and kind of about, but I wasn't liking the feel of it. So basically I put more texture on it, it's been drying, and here's what I'm thinking. I'm gonna take more rust. I like how I have splotches of rust already, so that's great. I'm gonna take more rust and I'm gonna just kind of flare it up. And then I'm gonna use the paints and I'm gonna bring the paints down. And as we get towards the middle and in the sections, we'll blend those with using some of the Dixie Belle Patinas in small spots, using some of the rust patinas as well. So we're just gonna kind of go with it. I've actually already have done the sides because I wanted to make sure that I could really get my vision. It is difficult when you're teaching a tutorial and things don't always go the way you want it to, but that's how it is when you paint furniture, and that is real life. So let's go ahead and get started, and it's gonna kind of be, I'm gonna not do a solid coat of patina or the rust like I did the first coat that you guys watch. I'm gonna take the rust, the primer, I'm gonna take the primer up to about here. I'm gonna start working the paints in, and then we're just gonna kind of go from there. So let's get started. And the first thing I wanna do is obviously the primer, which we talked about that at the beginning of the video. Thankfully I have more. For this, I'm just gonna be using my angled brush. These are the zipra brushes. I like these angled brushes for stuff like this. I just wanna make sure for at least the texture part of it gets covered up. It doesn't need to be a solid coat because there's already a coat underneath of it that's gonna pop through. So we're gonna let that set. We got some, it doesn't, like I said, that this coat doesn't have to be perfect. We'll let some of the patina that's there show through. I'm gonna get my paints out now, and the paints that I'm using are actually the Bermuda blending colors. I have number 1, number 2, and then number 4. And I'm gonna be using those to get the patina effect. Now, this is pretty much blending, y'all, so you need to make sure that your brush is in blending mode. What does blending mode mean? It means that you're not grabbing the paint on. It means that you're basically dry brushing paint on. Now I'm trying to avoid our little wet copper paint that we got going on over there. Trying to do here is to fill in like any of the white picks from the texture. I'm just trying to make sure that those get covered. I don't need to do like the perfect job on them, and mainly because we are going to be adding a little bit of the patina product in with that, and I can kind of use those areas to apply the patina. I just like this way better. I just have so much more control when I'm using paint than those patina. I love the patina products, but I just feel like I'm losing control of my piece, and that's really hard to grasp, you know, like when you're really trying to make your vision come to life. It's hard to use something that you have very little control over what you're getting. let that dry. And remember on the first stage, on the first step back when we did this coat here, then we have to do the iron over it and then oxidize it. Because of the level of oxidization that I need and the amount of layers that are already on this piece, I am just gonna do one coat of the primer, but I'm still gonna do 2 coats of the oxidizing iron paint over the top of this. So once this is dry, I'm gonna come through and I'm gonna get the oxidizing paint on here. I'm gonna add the patina, the copper patina up here with the green spray, and then we're gonna kind of let the piece bake and come to life. And then we'll kind of use some more blending and sort of fill in and make the transitions a little bit more fluid. So we're gonna give this piece some time to dry and do its thing, and then we'll finish this baby up. I'm excited to see what we get here. I'm excited to get my snake back to its rightful resting place. So anyways, we'll be back in a few. Okay, now that this is dry, we're gonna go ahead and add the iron oxidizing paint down here. And throughout different patches, we're gonna go back to where we were at you know, a few minutes ago and start adding a little bit of bronze paint to a kind of more of a dry brushing type effect. We're gonna allow that to dry, put a second coat on it, and then start the patina process. Okay, so we're done with the iron part. We're gonna go ahead and start on the bronze part up here. Now you notice that I'm taking this patina and I'm actually dry brushing it on. That way when we go to spray the actual patina, I'm gonna pat it on with my little magic sponge here, and that will help kind of tone down the blues and make them more of an actual true patina type, I guess, finish. So really just dry brushing is gonna be your best friend. The great thing with this technique is really the only product that it takes a lot of is the actual rusting side of it, which can be a little bit pricey. So you're gonna have to keep that in mind. If this is a piece you're flipping, you're gonna have to kind of keep that in mind. Okay, we are gonna go ahead and put the second coat on of the iron oxidizing paint, and then we're gonna go ahead and add a little bit more copper here, and we're actually going to start the patina process up here. We'll come down here probably about an hour or so and start the rusting process down here once again. Okay, now you notice on the second coat, I didn't do like full coverage. You're not supposed to. You just kind of have the majority of it, and that's what causes the different variations between the rusting, is how heavy the paint is on the surface below when the solution, let's see, when the rust activator hits it. Okay, so we're gonna work up here at the top. We're gonna do some more bronzing, and then we're going to get our green ready. And our sponge ready. I'll put that over here. Now, if you remember when we did the patina project, you do one coat of the Dixie Belle or Modern Masters, and it's on the second coat that after just a couple of minutes you start to spray patina spray to start that process. Well, we're actually not going to be spraying on today. I'm actually going to be sponging it on. That way I have a little bit more control so it doesn't run down into my rust finish. Oops, that was a little too much. That's all right. Now, instead of just spraying it on and letting it run, we don't want to do that because we want to try, it's going to happen. We are going to end up getting some of this into the rusting section down here. It's okay, but we want to try to control as much as we can. So I'm actually going to spray it into a paper plate like this. Take my sponge and we're just going to start sponging it on. And remember how we just dry brushed it. And so see where the areas we dry brushed it, we just want to kind of drag the patina spray along with it. And you can even spray right into the sponge if you want to. In areas that are a little bit heavier with the bronze paint, I'm trying to really get it on there so that it'll activate it. You can kind of already see how it has that, it just has that look. I don't know how to describe it. You see how this changed it almost instantly by just kind of dragging the sponge over it. Okay, we're going to let that set and allow the patina process to start. And then obviously when this here is all dry down here, we're going to start down here with the rusting process. Always keep your brushes out until the very end because you never know when you're going to need to go back up and touch something up. Okay, so we're going to get started here on the bottom part of oxidizing this to turn into the rust. You can see that there is a couple spots that could use a little bit more patina. These are the kind of things that I was talking about earlier when you lose control when you're using these patina products. And you can see right here this discoloration. I don't like that at all. So we're going to fix that up with a little bit of paint and some more dry brushing. While we wait for this bottom part to do its thing. I look like I want a little bit more patina over here as well. And so a little bit more paint to touch up a little bit there. But you can see what I'm talking about when I'm talking about losing control of your project you just don't know what you're gonna get. You could do the same thing across the board and have no idea what you're gonna get, and it's very frustrating. And somebody with OCD, it's tough. So we're gonna go ahead and put a little bit of paint on this, touch this up, get this bottom part working, doing what it needs to do, and get it all kind of blended together, I guess you could say. So let's get started. On the bottom, you wanna get your rust activator, and you are going to, just like we did the first step here. All right, so we're gonna let the rest part of it set, and now we're gonna work on a little bit of this up here and get this a little bit more blended. Okay, so when these sections here dry, what we'll end up doing is dry brushing the bronze through it to kind of tone it down, and then drag the patina sponge over it so it causes sort of that toned down patinaed sort of look. So don't worry about these spots here, but that's what I was talking about, is that when you're using that patina product, you lose all the control and you just don't really know what you're gonna get. Now the rusting section of the bottom part here, it can actually take up to 2 hours to get a full rush. You can start seeing it's starting to work fairly quickly in some of the spots here. That is also because of the various layers that we have on this. So I wanted to talk to you guys real quick while we're waiting for this to do what it needs to do, about flipping a piece like this. This is a hard piece to flip. My recommendation is to, if you're gonna do a piece like this with the hopes of selling, start out small and test your market. If I were you, my suggestion would be to try to keep finishes like this for custom work only. In a lot of markets, it's very difficult to sell a piece like this because it's a very defined market, okay? So it's not really, there's not a market. Nobody's out there looking for a piece like this. It's kind of one of those things that they see and it grabs your attention. In most homes, there's a spot for small pieces. There is not always a space for large pieces. So you kind of have to know your area. You got to know who your clientele is before you go and do a huge buffet or hutch in a finish like this and hope to sell it. It may be very difficult for you to be able to do that. Keep in mind that if you are doing custom work for somebody, that this finish can be a little bit pricey depending on how much product you need. The Modern Masters metallic effects paints are not cheap. So you want to make sure you price that accordingly as well. So we're going to actually step away from this piece for a couple of hours and let paints dry and patinas, and then we're going to come in and put all our finishing touches on it. A piece like this, you know, when we did our first two coats, where we did the primer, and then we went and did the iron paint, and then we went and did the oxidizing part of it, and then we sealed that up. That is the same thing here. You have to seal this piece no matter what, and it has to be sealed with a water or oil-based product. It cannot be waxed. That could cause a reaction between the patinas. Okay, so this will have to be sealed. A polycrylic would be fine. The Modern Masters PERMACOAT Extreme works really, really well, and it dries super fast too. Again, it's a little bit on the pricey side of things. If I had to do this project all over again from start to finish, let me give you guys some tips on what I would have done, knowing what I know now and being a little bit frustrated with the patina and the rusting process. Here's what I would have done. If I could start over right now, I had my black snake cabinet, this is what I would have done. I would have done the texture first and foremost. The piece was already clean. I didn't have to worry about the black coming through. I'm actually quite fine with it if a little bit of black comes through. If you're starting with a piece that's really light that you're taking to something like this, and you may want to go ahead and do that first step of that primer coat. So if I had to do it all over again, I would do the texture first. okay? Then I would do the rust primer second. Then I would do the oxidizing paint third. And then I would go ahead and spray the rust activator for the fourth step. Obviously adding in your paints, a little bit of patinas or whatnot throughout the piece. So again, if I had to do it all over again, that's how I would have done it. Knowing what I know now, in the future, it'll still kind of depend on what I'm working on, because if this piece was white to start out with, I definitely would have had to start the same exact way I had to start now. Keep in mind, the textures will not stick to the rust bases unless they are sealed. So keep that in mind. So that's why I said I would do the texture first and then the rust over the top of it. If you have just the rust finish and it's not sealed and you try to do texture over it, it will not stick. It'll just flake right off. There's no way for it to adhere to the surface. So just some little tips for you. We're gonna let this piece sit for a couple of hours and we're pretty much done. So I'll see you in a few with our final review. Hello everybody, we're back. It's the morning after. Can you tell? I even slept in the same clothes. That's how late I was up doing this project for y'all. As you can see overnight, how the rust just went poof, it popped right out. I don't know if you guys remember back probably 20 minutes ago in this video, and I said the instructions said to wait 24 hours, and I was like, I'm not waiting 24 hours. I don't have 24 hours. This is what happens when you wait 24 hours. So I would definitely recommend that after you do your rust effects, that you let it sit, let the piece sit, let it settle 24 hours, 48 hours, and then seal it up, okay? So the last step I have is to seal this up. You guys don't need to watch me do that. So with that, I hope you guys enjoyed this tutorial. I had so much fun with this, and I can't wait to get my snake back on her home because she's been living on my dining room table. So anyways, we'll see you guys around. Take care, bye.